Hello and welcome back to Sharks Happening. On today's show we are going to add to our cluster attack series. As a matter of fact, these two photos are involved in this cluster attack. It was 1975. So we're going to go through all the attacks, and we're going to do so. We've all seen Jaws, and we've seen it from the point of view where you see everything. Now we're going to see Jaws in the point of view where a researcher is looking into it. So it's going to be quite a bit different, and I hope you'll stick around. It's going to be a great show. Okay, we're going to start out the cluster over at Amity Island at South Beach, and the date is June 28th of 1975. Chrissy, that's how we know her name is Chrissy, and an unnamed gentleman. They were going out for a night dip in the water into the ocean. They had left a bonfire, went to the beach. The gentleman passed out before he even got out into the water, and Chrissy ended up going out into the water. 2 days later, Chrissy's remains were found on the beach. Very little remained of it. We have a list of the trauma that was done to the body here. The torso was severed mid-thorax. No organs remained. The head, shoulders, one arm, and part of the rib cage was intact. It bit off most of the right arm and most of the meat off of the top of the right arm, and removed the left arm completely and the legs completely. Part of the pelvis was still remaining with part of the rib cage, and that's all that remained of Chrissy. And they don't know what ended up happening, how far out she was. At first they claimed this was a shark attack, then it was changed to a boating accident, and that's where it remained until an Oceanographic Institute marine biologist came out and looked at the remains a few days later after another attack that we're going to go over. So hopefully by the state of the remains, Chrissy didn't know anything that was happening with her. It must have been a quick ending for her. And this goes down as an attack, a predation. It's a shark. We just don't know how big or what kind. On July 1st of 1975, Alex Kittner is at South Beach, again at Amity Island. It's about 1 p.m. The beach itself is packed, but there's only about 10-12 people in the water. Alex is on his air mattress, and he takes it, and he is about 20 yards from shore. He's in 20 feet deep water, and he's the furthest from shore. Suddenly, people watching from the beach see what looks like airplane wings almost spin through the water. It's spun in the air, and Alex disappeared under the water. The next thing they see is water being shot up with blood in it up out of the air mattress from the air mattress being bitten. Alex is never seen again. Everybody clears out of the water. The air mattress that Alex Kittner was on, it floated to shore, shredded that it had been bitten. Nobody got a good look at the shark. They just saw the fins on it, said they were awfully large when it spun, when it took him off of his air mattress. So we still don't know what type of shark, what size shark. We know that another shark, or the same shark, just went ahead and did an attack, a fatality, and consumed little Alex Kittner. That's our second attack in this cluster series. So as a result of the Kittner attack, the beaches were closed for 24 hours. They also put a $3,000 bounty on the shark. They went ahead and killed the Kittner boy, and most likely Chrissy, is what they're thinking. The same evening, on July 2nd, Charlie and a friend of his goes to South Beach to an old wooden dock. And they go out to the dock, and they have themselves a chain that has a hook on the end, and they fasten the chain to the wooden post of the dock, and then they take the hook and they put it into a roast. Now they take and they have an inner tube that's connected to the roast line, and they throw that into the water, and that drifts out, and they're out there maybe till about midnight. Around midnight, that inner tube takes off, and it's pulling the chain off of the dock. Pulls about 60 feet of chain. All of a sudden it breaks the dock loose, and Charlie's friend is standing on the dock that breaks loose, and he's pulled down into the water, and the momentum of the dock being pulled out as it goes from underneath him, it pulls him about 20 yards from from the dock itself. About another 100 feet from him, that dock stops and it turns and starts coming back at him. And now Charlie's yelling at him to start swimming. Charlie's friend just barely made it back to the dock and up on the dock. He must have been real close to being finished off by whatever took, probably the shark that took that roast. So he's out the roast, they're out the hook, they broke the dock, and they don't have any shark. This is not an attack. This would be a provoked attack. And it would be on a fisherman that's trying to kill a shark. So the activity would be killing a shark, and it would be a provoked attack. We don't know. Maybe it would just give him a bite and go on its way because it just ate a roast and ate 2 people if it's the same shark, but we'll see. But still don't know what size shark. Nobody's gotten a look at it, and we don't know what kind. The same night, Charlie's fishing expedition did not go well. They went ahead and opened up that tiger shark that was caught, and that's how they knew that there wasn't any sign of the Kittner boy or any human remains. There was fish, there was a piece of a turtle, there was a license plate, but no sign of human remains. So it wasn't the right shark. So they decide they're going to go out onto the water just after midnight. They end up on the water, and at about 2 o'clock in the morning, they run across a boat. And this was a almost fully submerged boat, small fishing boat. And Sheriff Brody noticed that it was Ben Gardner's boat. Now, we don't know when Ben Gardner went ahead and had this issue with his boat, but it must have been during the daylight, I'm thinking. It's a half mile from shore, don't know how deep the water is, and they pull up on the boat, and Hooper dives in. He's going to go and inspect what made the boat go ahead and sink. So Hooper dives in, and he explains when he's in the water that he goes near the front of the ship, near the bottom of the hole, and he sees a huge hole in the bottom of there. And he's inspecting it, and he sees that there's a tooth in it. So he grabs this tooth, and he says that it's about 3 inches long. Right then, when he pulled that out and was looking at the tooth, Ben Gardner's head fell down out of that hole and was right there. Freaked him out. Hooper dropped the tooth and swam up to the surface. Like I said, this probably happened to Ben Gardner during the daylight when he could jump into the water real quick and see if he couldn't see what was going on underneath there. Probably most likely had a flashlight with him either way, but I don't think you would be jumping into the water checking it out at night. You'd probably just want to try to swim your way in or make a call, but whatever happened, it had to have been quick. And the only way his head could have ended up in that hole is he must have been looking in there and most likely got attacked from the side to be able to sever his head. And the force of the bite sent his head up into the hole where it lodged until he moved it around a little bit when Hooper took that tooth out. So we don't know when it happened. We don't know if he was swallowed whole and bitten or bitten from the side, which would be more likely. But we do know that there's no sign of Ben Gardner other than his head. This will go down as an attack, a predation, bitten in half. And again, we had a 3-inch tooth, but they didn't get to look at it to identify it as, yeah, that was the tooth of a great white or whatever the tooth could have ended up being. So we don't have the tooth to go off of, but if it's 3 inches, that would be about a 23-foot long shark, about as big as they come. So that's the story on Ben Gardner, and we'll move on. So the next day, 4th of July, the beach is crowded, not many people in the water at about 10:30 in the morning, and suddenly people start going into the water, and you get about 100 people in the ocean at the time. Now at the same time, there's a walled off, it's got a natural walled off jetty. A woman watches a shark. She's screaming the shark is swimming into this pond, they call it. And in this pond, there's a gentleman rowing a little skiff, and he's talking to 3 kids that are on a sailboat, and there's a handful of sailboats in the area. 10:30 in the morning, 100 yards from shore. Don't know how deep the water is. And the shark comes up and goes ahead and hits the skiff, flipping it over, capsized the skiff, hitting it with the upper part of its body, and also hit the sailboat with the 3 kids on there and dumping them into the water. So now you got 4 people in the water, overturned skiff, sinking sailboat, 3 kids, and 1 unidentified male, and the shark in the water with them. The unidentified male is trying to climb up onto his skiff. The shark comes up and grabs him by the leg and pulls him into the water. And then immediately after he grabs the man, he starts swimming his way out the way he came, and he had to swim by Mike Brody's son, who was one of the kids off of the sailboat that's in the water, and he went into shock. So this ends up being an attack and a predation. Only thing that they recovered from the unidentified male was one of his legs, pretty much bitten off up at the hip. It had fallen to the seafloor, and they did recover his leg. They didn't recover anything else. $10,000 is paid for Quint to go out and catch and kill this shark finally. And he is the most well-known shark fisherman there ever was. He went ahead and went with Brody and Hooper as his mates and went out to go ahead and catch the shark. The first night they didn't see the shark. Night rolls around, first thing in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, half a mile from shore. Don't know the depth of the water. The orca, the boat that they're on, gets smacked in the side, in the hull, and it springs a leak and starts leaking in water. So they spend the rest of the day trying to run from the shark, trying to put more spears in the shark, trying to head themselves to shore after they had already went a mile out from shore. So now they get themselves about 3/4 of a mile out. The engine stops running. They can't get the boat moving. It's bringing on water. It's starting to list, and the shark shows back up. It starts tilting a little bit, listing. So they decide that Hooper decides he's going to go in the water. You know, they put the cage in the water. Hooper gets in it. So very close to the boat, he's in the cage. He's going to stab the shark in the gums with some drug that's going to kill the shark. The next thing they know, the shark comes and attacks the cage. Seconds later, it comes in for another attack on the cage and breaches into the cage. So we don't know what happens to Hooper. He disappeared from the cage, and the shark is still in the cage and gets itself free. And now that leaves Brody and Quint in the wheelhouse of the orca that is quickly listing and sinking. And the first thing that the shark ends up doing is breaching the water and lands on the back of the boat. But in the wheelhouse was Brody and Quint, and they're hanging on because the boat is just leaning down. There's thousands of pounds on the back of the boat, having it on an angle, and it's slippery, and Quint lets go. He can't hang on, slides down the deck, and he slides into the shark's mouth all the way up to his sternum. And the shark bites down a few different times, and then grabs Quint, and he disappears. And that's the last Quint's ever seen. So Quint would go down as an attack and a predation. And now they know it's a 25-foot great white shark, the largest great white shark ever seen. And it disappeared with its 5th victim in a matter of a week. So now with Quint gone, Hooper assumed dead, that leaves Brody, and he's still standing in the wheelhouse where he was just before Quint was taken away by the shark. The shark just breaks right through the glass window of the wheelhouse because he sunk so much. The windows are now the doors, and in comes the shark, and the shark is in there with Brody, and Brody is looking for something to hit him with. He says he grabbed onto one of the tanks, one of the oxygen tanks from his buddy Hooper, and he beat on the shark a few times and then threw it in the shark's mouth, and the shark took that and went on its way and swimming around. So Brody grabs onto a rifle. He goes up into the tower, and as he's sinking, so the boat is sinking and he's listing, and he's about 15 feet up from the water, and the shark comes up and starts biting on the boat, attacking the boat, trying to get up at Brody. Shark can't, so it swims away, and Brody's now getting closer and closer to the water. Now he's taking shots at the shark as it's swimming towards him. Finally, one of his last shots hits the tank, which explodes the tank, and the shark sinks. Finally, the shark is taken care of. 25-foot shark no longer. He goes to start swimming back in, and up comes Matt Hooper, who ran out of air, had to come up and surface, couldn't hide by the rocks where he said he had been. So he ends up surviving this too. He had Chrissy. Then it got a hold of the Kittner boy. Then it got a hold of the unidentified male, Ben Gardner. It tried to get at Charlie's buddy that does the fishing. So that's 4. 5th one it might have tried, and then it ate the 5th one, which was Quint. And that's the end of the cluster finally. And like I said, the island didn't survive either. It kind of sunk after all this stuff. Maybe something about the shark. But there was another meeting up with the shark before the island sunk, and maybe we'll get into that one later on. But this is a prime example of why there's no rogue sharks. Why rogue shark theory is just crap. I mean, you'd have it sitting around the same area where people are swimming, eating on them. And if it's a large shark, let's say it's, 18-foot great white shark, wants to start eating people. It's not going to eat 5 in a week, but it's going to eat 2 a week, and all of a sudden you're going to have probably 30, 40 deaths per year from one shark. Just keeping itself fed, using humans is, to eat. So anybody says, a shark attacked a person, went ahead and ate it, it's got the taste for flesh. That's old school stuff. That's like 1800s talk. We know better about the sharks now. So that is our story of Jaws. That's our story of Jaws. And that's what it would look like from the non-viewer side. I hope you join me again, maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day for another episode. But until then, you go into that water. You are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.